Have you ever wondered who is really behind the iconic face on those cake mix boxes, or the one giving you cooking advice in those retro cookbooks? Well, get ready to be surprised, because today we're unmasking the real Betty Crocker. From her humble beginnings as a marketing tool to becoming a symbol of American home cooking, the journey is nothing short of extraordinary. Stick around as I peel back the layers and reveal the fascinating and sometimes unexpected truth behind the persona that has graced kitchen shelves for generations. This is not your average cooking tale. This is the real Betty Crocker story, and you don't want to miss it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where I dive into the untold stories behind the brands and famous females that have shaped our lives. Today I'm diving into the fascinating world of culinary history to uncover the real story behind the name, as we all know, Betty Crocker. So buckle up as I explore how a fictional figure became a household name. I promise you, the real Betty Crocker story is more captivating than you might imagine.
And now, a message from our sponsor.
Thank you, June's Journey, for sponsoring this video. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game with a captivating detective story taking you back to the glamour of the 1920s. With a diverse cast of characters, each new scene takes you further through a thrilling murder mystery story that sets the main protagonist, June Parker, in a quest to solve the murder of her sister and uncover her family's many secrets. She also has a knack for getting in tricky situations and solving her friends' problems in her own witty ways. And I really like June's Journey as a way to relax. I love the decor in the game, and it's really fun, like looking for the hidden objects throughout the game. And I love that it's a murder mystery as well. And I love that it takes place in the 1920s, and the set design and just the whole style of the game has that vintage look that I'm into. And I just really love the 1920s. And I also love how chic June Parker is. So make sure you download June's Journey with the link below. The text will be in my description box and pinned comment. All right, now let's jump back into the rest of the video. Thank you, June's Journey, for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to download the link to June's Journey in my description box and pinned comment. For over a century, individuals have regarded Betty Crocker as a quintessential cheerful homemaker, always impeccably groomed in her iconic red and white attire. Beyond being a skilled baker, she serves as a resource for addressing your most challenging culinary inquiries, assisting you through complex recipes, and even offering guidance on crafting a replica Chanel suit, as featured in the 1972 edition of Sphere, the lifestyle magazine associated with Betty Crocker. She embodies the qualities of June Cleaver, Martha Stewart, and Dear Abby, all rolled into one extraordinary figure. So where did Betty Crocker originate, and how has she managed to remain relevant through the years and countless cookbooks? Continue watching to discover the fascinating story of America's premier culinary figure, Betty Crocker. The expression, "call me Betty Crocker," isn't casually tossed around. It holds profound significance in American culture. From music, literature, and cinema to the interiors of celebrities' lavish residences, Betty Crocker is an enduring presence. Over the course of a century, we, the Bettys, have played a pivotal role in shaping homes, kitchens, and culinary preferences across America. Betty Crocker's journey began in 1921. The unexpected birth of an icon emerged from a simple contest orchestrated by the Washburn Crosby Company, challenging home cooks to solve a jigsaw puzzle for the chance to win an adorable pincushion shaped like a bag of gold medal flour. Washburn, a precursor to General Mills, found themselves flooded with inquiries from home cooks seeking expert baking advice amid the competition. Faced with the challenge of meeting the public's hunger for culinary wisdom, the persona of Betty Crocker was introduced. Betty, however, wasn't an individual, but rather a name crafted to personalize responses to inquiries. If you suspected that there's significance behind the name, you're correct. Crocker was chosen as a tribute to a respected company director, and Betty was selected simply for its friendly and approachable sound, a delightful nugget of history. To bring Betty to life, the female employees of the Washburn Crosby Company were invited to contribute their versions of a Betty Crocker signature. The selected winner's signature remains in use today, solidifying Betty's status as an icon in the realm of iconography. During this period, the company's dedication to consumer service and product quality was on the rise. This commitment led to the initiation of sponsored cooking schools nationwide and the employment of home economics tasked with meticulously testing and demonstrating the award-winning gold medal flour. As the demand for baking information surged, so did Betty Crocker's staff, marking the inception of the renowned Betty Crocker kitchens. Since 1924, Betty Crocker has not only been synonymous with kitchen-tested goodness, but also has been dedicated to educating creators, bakers, and culinary enthusiasts. This commitment traces back to the inception of the Betty Crocker Cooking School on the Air, the first daytime radio cooking show. The show gained immense popularity, expanding to 13 regional stations. Graduates of the program who submitted reports for grading numbered 238 in the first year and ranged in age from 16 to 82.
Fact 1. With Betty Crocker, you get a deviled food cake that's deliciously moist.
The cooking school's success led it to become a program on the emerging NBC network, contributing to making the world a better place for 24 years. Betty has stood as an icon through every significant moment in American history. Responding to a request from the U.S. Office of War Information, Betty Crocker hosted a radio program called Our Nation's Rations, adding homemakers and maximizing their use of ration food. Almost 7 million copies of Betty Crocker's wartime booklet, Your Share, were distributed as part of this effort. Betty's contributions during wartime didn't end there. She was honored by the American Red Cross for exceptional service in the national interest. From modest origins to navigating through war, the Great Depression, and the swiftly evolving landscape of America, Betty remained a resilient and unwavering force. In 1945, Fortune magazine recognized Betty Crocker as the second best-known woman in America, just behind the First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. This distinction earned Betty the title of the First Lady of Food, a title that resonates even today. As recounted by Ruby Peterson, a former economist who joined General Mills in 1942, the staff frequently found themselves maneuvering around the fact that Betty was not a tangible presence when visitors arrived. While technically accurate, the revelation could be jarring for those seeking to express their admiration. Peterson noted that some visitors, eager to pay their respects, were so emotionally moved that tissues were kept on hand for the most tearful of fans. At the pinnacle of her fame, Betty was inundated with 5,000 letters daily and was ranked as the second most globally recognized woman. And this was stated in 1945 in a Fortune magazine article, and ironically, the same article exposed Betty Crocker as an artificial creation and a deception. Yet this revelation paradoxically enhanced her appeal to the masses. Her lack of a real-life counterpart didn't diminish her significance because as long as she continued to offer guidance and assist homemakers, she remained and will always remain indispensable. Given that Betty Crocker is a conceptual entity rather than an actual person, there exists no genuine photograph of her. Nevertheless, various portrait paintings have been produced, with the initial one crafted in 1936 by the artist Nisa McMean. The latest portrait, unveiled in 1996, followed a distinctive approach. In celebration of Betty's 75th anniversary, Images of 75 women from diverse ages and backgrounds were amalgamated to form a composite, serving as a reference for artist John Stuart Ingle. While incorporating elements from the existing 1986 portrait of traditional aspects, the 1996 depiction of Betty marked a departure by featuring brown eyes for the first time. Regardless of the era, each rendition of Betty Crocker is consistently portrayed as approachable, knowledgeable, and adorned in her iconic red and white attire. She's characterized as a woman who delights in cooking, baking, spending time with family and friends, and possesses creativity and resourcefulness. Each portrayal of Betty represents a blend of qualities embodied by women who personify the brand.
Well, Mother, after all, no one really can resist a rich, moist cake made with a Betty Crocker cake mix.
While Betty Crocker was addressing inquiries and offering advice on a large scale, it wasn't a singular individual, but rather a team of people known as the Crockettes, dedicated to Bettyfying kitchens worldwide. Among the initial 6 college-educated home economics hired was Jeanette Kelly. Not only did she personify Betty, but she also authored the first bread baking book for gold medal flour and played a key role in establishing test kitchens for both Washburn Crosby and General Mills. Kelly had the privilege of hosting highly successful cooking demonstrations and Betty Crocker cooking schools. By 1946, she ascended to the position of director in the Home Services Department at General Mills, overseeing 50 women and the launch of Betty Crocker's picture cookbook, also recognized as Big Red. She continued in this capacity until her retirement in 1958. When Betty Crocker comes to mind, cake mix and frosting likely tops the list. However, Betty Crocker, the inaugural nationally acknowledged brand to introduce gluten-free brownie, cookie, and cake mixes in the mainstream grocery stores, didn't begin with sweet products. Her initial endorsed product in 1941 was a packaged noodle soup mix. Although General Mills did not invent cake mix, Betty Crocker played a pivotal role in popularizing it on a national scale as a staple in American households during the 1950s. In 1933, P. Duff & Sons, a molasses company based in Pittsburgh, patented the first cake mix by combining dehydrated molasses with dehydrated flour, sugar, eggs, and other ingredients. This mix only required the addition of water and baking to produce gingerbread. By 1947, over 200 companies were producing cake mixes for regional distribution, but consumer skepticism prevailed. Packaging was often inadequate, posing a risk to the mix's quality. Cake mixes remained relatively expensive, yielded inconsistent results, and lacked flavor. To lighten the consistency, some companies even resorted to adding soap. And I feel like whenever I'm going to bake a cake or cupcakes, I always go for the Betty Crocker cake mix. And my favorite is cherry chip. That's my go-to. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite Betty Crocker cake mix is. After World War II, many women who had taken on industrial roles during the war returned to their domestic lives, making a shift in American gender roles that proved to be lasting. By 1950, 1 in 4 married women was employed. Despite the resurgence of domesticity and the newfound scarcity of time, women began relying on products such as minute rice and Reddi-wip. Contrary to corporate expectations, women embraced convenience foods with reluctance, incorporating them into homemade recipes. In 1947, General Mills introduced the Betty Crocker ginger cake mix after 4 years of development. I feel like I've seen this in the grocery store lately. I feel like that would be a fun one to make over the holidays. General Mills joined the convenience food trend as flour sales had been declining since the 20s. Post-war prosperity allowed families to purchase bread instead of baking it and increased awareness of nutrition-led households away from potatoes and bread towards diets rich in fruits, vegetables, and meats. General Mills aimed to offset these flour losses with the sales of their cake mixes. By 1949, General Mills launched Devil's Food and Party cake mixes.
Betty Crocker's new honey spice cake mix? I just wish you'd seen it. High and light and moist.
Stop it, dear. I'm starving.
Because Betty Crocker puts just the good things you'd use yourself in her honey spice cake mix.
The party cake mix offered consumers the flexibility to prepare white, yellow, or spice cake, depending on the eggs and spices added. Betty Crocker continued introducing new flavors, including yellow and white cake in 1952, honey spice and angel food in 1953, marble in 1954, and chocolate in 1955. Unlike other items categorized as convenience foods, cakes held a special significance for many women, symbolizing femininity and domestic bliss. Women often felt compelled to master the art of crafting the perfect homemade cake, with a 1953 Gallup poll ranking cake as the second real test of a woman's ability to cook, just behind the apple pie. The concept of domestic ideals created a divide among American women. Some embraced cake mixes while others clung to traditional recipes. Let me know in the comments below, are you a cake mix type of person, or do you just do things from scratch? I'm really curious what other people do. Although cake mix sales experienced a threshold increase between January 1947 and August 1948, they eventually reached a plateau. General Mills sought the expertise of marketing specialist Ernst Dichter to understand the reason behind this. Following the interviews with groups of women, Dichter concluded that the simplicity of cake mixes made users feel overly self-indulgent. In response, General Mills eliminated dried eggs from the mixes, requiring women to add their own, and this adjustment led to an improvement in sales. I mean, the ones I buy, I always add my own eggs and milk. In 1954, Betty Crocker introduced the Answer Cake, a cake and frosting mix conveniently pre-packaged in a pan, specifically targeting small families. Although later discontinued, the Answer Cake made a comeback as the Stir and Frost mix in 1976. Additionally, Betty Crocker unveiled chiffon cake mixes in 1958, a creation by celebrity caterer Harry Baker. Chiffon combined the richness of butter cake with the airy texture of sponge cake. In the affluent post-war era of America, grocery store shelves were inundated with products, compelling companies to employ creative strategies to maintain competitiveness. Betty Crocker, General Mills' fictional mascot representing the ideal homemaker, epitomized quality and value. And General Mills strategically utilized Crocker's image to challenge the prevailing perception of cake mixes as mere shortcuts. Some loyal Betty Crocker fans were surprised to see her endorsing these mixes. To attract female shoppers, General Mills employed high-impact colors, prominently featuring red packaging. The company utilized television commercials and even advocated for a fourth meal centered around Betty Crocker cake. Advertisements inundated women with reminders of their hectic schedules, emphasizing the appeal of convenient shortcuts like cake mixes. General Mills also shifted focus away from the simplicity of preparation by highlighting elaborate frosting designs on packaging and in cookbooks. Appearance took precedence over flavor and texture, with the success of Betty Crocker's picture cookbook in 1950, which sold over 1 million copies in the first year, serving as a testament to this trend. By the 1950s, General Mills, along with Duncan Hines and Pillsbury, dominated the cake mix market. In 1977, taking inspiration from Pillsbury, General Mills introduced pudding into its mixes to enhance moisture. Since then, General Mills has introduced a variety of cake mix formulas and flavors, including stir and streusel and light style, a mix with 1/3 fewer calories than the original. Even in the 2010s, Betty Crocker cake mix continues to enjoy popularity. And prior to the release of the Betty Crocker's picture book in 1950, Betty Crocker and her industrious team were already producing a series of cookbooks. And her cookbook was referred to as Big Red and the Kitchen Bible. And this iconic cookbook achieved nearly 2 million copies sold within the first 2 years alone, surpassing even the sales of the Bible. The book is currently in its 12th edition, with distribution exceeding 75 million copies. To date, the Betty Crocker team has successfully crafted over 250 cookbooks, marking a remarkable accomplishment. And I kind of want the vintage replica one. I saw it on Amazon, and it looks really neat. It has all of the 1950s recipes in it.
I'm Betty Crocker, and I promise you a perfect cake every time you bake. That's right, perfect. You be the judge. Or write General Mills, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and get your money back.
And you don't have to bother with fancy icings for any Betty Crocker cake. Who would ask for anything better than chocolate cake and vanilla ice cream with chocolate sauce? Or white cake and chocolate ice cream with marshmallow topping right out of a jar? Where's the family that doesn't go for cake and ice cream, especially when every cake turns out just the way you want it, thanks to Betty Crocker cake mixes? Bake a Betty Crocker cake right now. Perfect every time.
1950 marked more than just the prominence of Big Red. It was the year in which General Mills undertook a venture no other company had ventured before. It was the extension of the Betty Crocker trademark into fully dimensional live action personification. Adelaide Holly Cumming, a former vaudeville actress, took on the complete embodiment of Betty Crocker's identity from 1950 through to the early 1960s. This portrayal of America's First Lady of Food became a television mainstay. Whether instructing George Burns and Gracie Allen in the art of baking or hosting shows like the Betty Crocker television show and the Betty Crocker Star Matinee, a living, breathing Betty Crocker brought personality and trustworthiness to the brand. The inception of the Betty Crocker Cooking School of the Air dates back to 1924, marking the advent of radio's inaugural cooking show. For a span of 2 decades, Marjorie Child Husted, who not only wrote but also hosted the program, lent her voice to this immensely popular show. Upon being nationally broadcast by NBC, the show evolved into one of the longest-running radio programs in history, amassing a substantial audience of over 1 million listeners. Let me know in the comments below, did you ever watch any of the Betty Crocker shows in the 50s and 60s? Did you listen to the radio show? I'm really curious. I feel like I've never actually seen Betty Crocker in action for these TV shows, but they sound really cool. And during 1943, rather than remaining passive as a nation engaged in war, Betty Crocker took an active role by creating a mealtime guide. This guide empowered women on the home front to contribute to the war effort by effectively rationing their meals. As explained by Organized Clutter, Betty Crocker's step-by-step guide provided valuable insights on optimizing the use of various food items, including meat, vegetables, and fat rations. As mentioned earlier, Marjorie Child Husted served as the voice of Betty Crocker, in addition to her roles as an economist and cookbook editor. She was deeply committed to empowering women. Husted believed that her work as Betty Crocker provided women with a sense of significance. In 1948, in recognition of her groundbreaking contributions, President Harry Truman presented Husted with the Woman of the Year award from the Women's National Press Club. This honor was shared that year with notable figures such as Eleanor Roosevelt, Grandma Moses, and Portland Mayor Dorothy McCullough Lee. Now let's talk about the famous Betty Crocker recipe, the pineapple upside down cake. And the narrative behind the pineapple upside down cake is as delightful and succulent as the dish itself. Surprisingly, for a dessert and fruit associated with warmth and hospitality, this cake owes a significant part of its popularity to a recipe contest embedded in a pineapple marketing campaign during the 1920s. So it's crazy to think that recipe is 100 years old now. And how did a competition contribute to the creation of something that Betty Crocker later hailed as a must-make favorite for generations? Let me know in the comments below. Do you enjoy the pineapple upside down cake? Is it a regular thing that you make? And now let's dive into the history of the pineapple upside down cake. In the initial appearances of the upside down cakes, a diverse array of fruits was employed. Numerous cookbooks published around the turn of the 20th century featured recipes for upside down cakes, incorporating fruits such as apples and cherries. Even in 1923, both the Pittsburgh Press and the San Francisco Chronicle provided recipes for a prune upside down cake. That just does not sound as good to me. While it's widely acknowledged that the pineapple has become the predominant fruit in upside down cakes, other fruits continue to find use in this delightful dessert. I feel like pineapple is the most aesthetically pleasing for this one as well. By 1969, Betty Crocker had introduced a pineapple upside down cake mix, complete with a can of Dole pineapple slices. I wonder if you can still buy this, I'm curious. Throughout its evolution, the pineapple upside down cake played a significant role in reshaping perceptions surrounding this cake style. As mentioned earlier, upside-down cakes were traditionally associated with individuals lacking access to an oven. However, according to Quaint Cooking, the rising popularity of pineapples elevated the upside-down cake's status, transforming it from a simple, hastily prepared treat to a more elegant dessert that families reserve for special occasions. And this shift is somewhat analogous to the way avocados have become a more sophisticated food choice in recent years. So let me know in the comments below, is the pineapple upside down cake something you'd be cooking over the holiday season upcoming? I feel like now I want to make one too. I'm so torn. Comment below like your favorite Betty Crocker recipe. And achieving recognition is no small feat, and Betty Crocker has maintained her prominence for over a century. In a 2015 article from the New York Daily News, she was acknowledged as one of the 8 most influential fictional figures, sharing the spotlight with iconic personas like Santa Claus, Barbie, and Uncle Sam. So let me know in the comments below if you grew up with Betty Crocker. I also found this really cute book, and it's Betty Crocker Lost Recipes, and it's a whole bunch of vintage Betty Crocker recipes, and there's a bunch in there that I'm interested in as well, and I think there'd be lots of fun ones over the holidays that you can make. So comment below if you've heard of this book. I'll also link the book below if you want to purchase it yourself. All right, and let me know in the comments below as well who you want me to feature next in my video. I like to feature iconic women and successful entrepreneurs from the 20th century, as well as female celebrities. All right, I'll see you guys again next time. See you soon. Bye.